Hi, everybody. It's another webcast with Claire. Why did we have to bring her on? Well, first of all, we had to twin it again in animal print, as shown here. But also, just because of how impactful the previous webcast she did with us. And Claire's had a rather successful career with Clubbercise, and also prior to that was all branding. So we thought we needed to get her on to explain it all through. So Claire, welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back.
Can I let them into a secret that I was wearing something different. We'd planned animal print, but I was in such a rush, I hadn't had time. So we stopped what we were planning to do just so I could put this on. So I hope you all approve. Anyway, to more important things, which is the branding chat. So let's get to that first question. So why do FITPRO'S need to know about branding, and what can it really do for their business and for themselves?
Well, it's literally the difference between the success or the failure of a business. If you get your branding right, it's going to massively help with that sales process. If you get it wrong, it can cause all sorts of problems. People will be confused, not really knowing what they're going to get. So yeah, it needs to really appeal to the target customer. And if you do that, then that is really going to help with those sales. So yeah, quite simple, really.
Yeah. So
Also, also it builds trust, and it tells a story. If you look at brands, big brands out there, with actually quite simple products outside the fitness industry, you've got something like Dove. And I think when we think of Dove products, we also think of the ad campaigns with all the body positivity. They're all about real beauty, and that's a really powerful story, which brands should really get involved with.
yeah, and that's the thing with regards to it reaching the target audience and speaking to them, but I think it really needs to be about also what represents you. So for example, my branding, it'd be very obvious, wouldn't it, if I was not on brand, as it were. I feel that it's sort of an extension of me.
Yeah,
Would you
definitely.
agree with that, with regards to, in a way you want to be sort of speaking authentically, not pretending to be somebody else with branding?
100%. You have to be authentic with whatever brand you create. You have to believe in your brand. And your brand at the end of the day is an extension of you, regardless of whether your brand is you and your name that you're using as your brand, or whether you've created that brand name. So you've got to really think about everything that you say yourself, as well as what you say under the brand's name, I guess.
Right. And so experience-wise out of the fitness industry, because we heard on your last webcast about how you got actually into teaching, and how sort of Clubbercise sort of became what it did and how it's grown, and we're hearing that you're going to Ibiza next with it. She's traveling the world, everybody, and I'm not at all jealous. But what from your sort of experience before fitness, what were some of the things that you could perhaps bring to fitness professionals from your branding sort of, I'm going to say, pre-fitness career?
Yeah. Well, I actually started out my career as a graphic designer. Then I moved in from graphic design. I then moved into marketing management. But as a graphic designer, I worked on all sorts of different projects. I did anything from just a logo and the whole kind of brand identity, through to all of the different marketing campaigns, designing adverts, designing websites, all of that stuff that comes as part of that brand. So it's such a wide area, branding, and I'm really, really passionate about it. It's not just about a logo, it's about a whole suite of different things that sit alongside that logo to tell that story. I mean, it's anything from your imagery, the photos that you use, the videos that you're using as well, the fonts that you use to communicate the brand. It's the
Tone of voice, I'm going to say, ironically.
Tone of voice,
Tone of voice.
definitely. Yeah, it's sort of I had memory blank there. Honestly, there's just so much, and
Yes,
it can be overwhelming, and that's really why we're here, isn't it? To talk about the fact that
so much.
it can be overwhelming. Even I get overwhelmed with it clearly, but it can be simplified for somebody, regardless of whether they're just starting a brand or whether they're already established and feel that they need to
Right.
work on it, evolve that brand, and create more of those kind of assets that sit alongside just the name and the logo.
Yeah, got it. And that, you know, I sort of said tone of voice when you sort of I have those moments, Claire, where words don't come out, and I know what I want to say. So, but tone of voice is an example, isn't it? Like the way you know, you write things, the way you might represent the brand and stuff. And I think one of the things that I recognize about brands is they're recognizable.
Yeah.
So, you know, anyone could pick up that piece of merchandising or chat to that person or whatever and see the website, and it's recognizable. It's like you say, it's not just the logo, is it? Like you say, it's the tiny simple things that are saying the same story. Um, and when you're saying that it can be overwhelming, and you know, there's such a suite of things for people to get their sort of minds round, where do you start? Where do you start with branding?
So when I work with so I do some brand consultancy, and I had done for many years before Clubbercise, and I still do that now. And one of the things I always do, is something I've done myself, and I do when I work with clients too, is I start by creating a mood board. And I love Pinterest. I've got so many different mood boards in Pinterest. And I just think that it's such a good resource for finding things that inspire you and you feel fit your brand and what you want to say. So on that mood board, you're going to have, obviously initially with the mood board, you're going to be using other people's stuff. And this isn't about copying somebody else's design that they've uploaded to Pinterest. This is about creating a consistent sort of brand image in there that you can then transfer to your own brand and make it your own. I've got, I actually show you on my phone, I found the first Clubbercise mood board that I made on Pinterest.
Oh, love that.
And it was really interesting to look at it again. We're now, I mean, it's 11 years that it's been going, but there's still a lot of things that are really consistent when you look back at that mood board to what we do now. And that is the strength of the brand. And that is how powerful a mood board can be. And because you're using other people's elements,
Yes.
it makes it easier. You're not like, there's nothing worse than starting from a blank sheet of paper and thinking, I really don't know what to
Yes.
do.
Yes.
And I always still now use mood boards. I do research to get that inspiration for something. And often what I create ends up being quite different to the thing I was inspired by originally. But that's the point. You're just using it as as a kind of building block to get you to where you need to be. So mood boards, whether you do it on Pinterest, whether you're a bit old school and you want to rip things out of magazines, that works too.
Yeah.
But just put it all together and remove things that don't fit. So, you know, if you found that let's say it's a yoga studio that you're starting, and I'm guessing a lot of the imagery related to yoga studios it's going to be quite soft potentially. It's going to be maybe more softer colors and more calming colors. And then if suddenly you've got a black and white photo in there or something that just jars, get rid of it, get rid of it. So what you're doing is creating this lovely, consistent mood board, almost like it's a bit like if you're decorating a
Yes.
room.
Yeah.
It's how you're putting together an outfit. It's the same kind of process. Just find things that, yes, because we're very good at that, it seems. Yeah, just find things that go together, remove things that don't, and use that as that first step on the journey to creating brand.
I guess one of the things I wanted to acknowledge is that, you know, people do struggle with branding, where to start, and like you said, with the all the different elements. I think you've just hit on this idea of this sort of mood board, this sort of almost it can be part of your vision and stuff like that. Are there any other shortcuts that you're aware, or should in fact people take shortcuts?
Yes and no. I would say that the beauty of the mood board is that that can then be given to a graphic designer to really help them on that process. So it cuts out a lot of the toing and froing, and it's going to save a lot of money because it will give them a really clear idea of what you're looking for. But you can also do it yourself in something like Canva.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need to be careful because not everyone has those kind of skills to be able to pull something together. But if it's always worth trying, and you can ask your most honest friends or family for their feedback,
Yeah.
and start to create that brand identity yourself. And if there's certain things you're struggling with, maybe then you can use a designer, and you can get actually cheap design help on websites like Fiverr.
Fiverr, yeah.
Yeah, so you can just get somebody with a little bit more skill in that area to do those things. There's still some things I do myself in graphic design, and then there's other things that I bring in other people because, it's been a long time since I've done a lot of design work, and there's all different elements to it, whether you're designing a flyer or whether you're designing a website, and all these different parts come together. But there are a lot of tools out there now, bits of software that do make it easier and can be a brilliant shortcut to getting what you need. And you've got like Wix for building websites. But it's just about keeping that consistency, the brand, rather than everything looking a little bit either homemade, and not in a good way, or just not fitting together.
That's a really nice way of putting it. I like that. So okay, so is it from your point of view with Clubbercise being your brand, and you've worked in branding for a long time, it's actually lovely to hear that. Well, I know you have to outsource things because you can't do it all, right? And I think that sometimes when it's our own personal brand, sometimes reaching out to other people, they may not necessarily know our story or know how to represent us. I mean, for example, if I was communicating to a graphic designer, and I work with designers and writers and this, that, and the other. And often I end up, I'm writing an email and then I end up sort of like scribbling something down and taking a photo to show what I'm kind of feeling and thinking, because it's actually really hard, isn't it, to be able to communicate what you want. Whereas if you're doing it for yourself, you know what you want. So is it hard when you've been in branding and you've got your own brand to allow others to
Oh,
influence it?
yes.
Is it?
Yes,
Is it?
it took me a really long time to find the right people.
Right.
And because there were times when I would use somebody I remember using someone from Fiverr to do social media graphics, but it was taking me as long well,
Mhm.
basically they delivered something that was okay, it wasn't great, but then, I would need to give feedback, and I don't like to hurt people's feelings as well. So, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. So it became really tricky because I thought these aren't quite right, but I don't know if I want to go back again to get more changes just to get to that stage of them being okay. So yeah, it can be a headache. You have to find the right person that gets it. So I would say don't persevere. If somebody isn't getting it, move on and find somebody else who will, because ultimately where I am now, I've
Yeah.
got somebody that designs the social media graphics, and they always blow my mind. I'm all, they're not just okay. I'm like, that looks amazing. And, it's better than I can do, So I guess
Yeah.
my standard was at least as good as I can do it myself. So yeah, you want to be looking for somebody that does nail it and not
It.
just kind of,
Not
yeah.
just good, but that actually nails it, because it's really significant, isn't it, branding? So with regards to branding, and I love how you said you found your original sort of piece when doing Clubbercise and kind of like your mood board.
You want to see it?
I'd love to see it actually, yeah.
So I realized I actually did two different ones. I've taken a screen recording to make it easier. So I did two mood boards. So here's one. It's just going to play there. So you can see this has got the neon colors, but with quite white backgrounds.
Yes.
A lot of head candy inspiration in there.
Yeah.
And then this is the other one.
Yes.
So you'll recognize this as being the one that we ended up going with.
Yes.
And right
Yeah.
down the bottom there, that's our original logo.
Oh,
That C, that one there. Ooh, yeah, that was our first logo that we had,
right.
which was stock image, which is something I would advise people not to do. Do not use a stock image for your logo because you can't trademark a stock image. So hence why we then brought in a designer actually to create something that was similar but different, so that we could make it unique. So that, well, you would reckon that's our current logo.
Absolutely. Yes.
So they're not that far removed from each other. It was still recognizable. It was probably about a year or 2 years into building the business that yeah, I took that step and decided to get the logo designed. So yeah, don't use stock images for logo.
No, absolutely. And so I guess one of the things that I've heard the word being said is like consistency and stuff. And we recognize that brands and businesses move and evolve. So, but I recognize that there's got to be some things that stay static. For example, I mean, I suppose there can be rebrands of things, but Coca-Cola, if we think of that as a brand, has had the same sort of squiggly kind of, if you look at a Coca-Cola bottle from 40 years ago, it still looks very similar to what's there. But I'm just kind of curious of what you think should remain static and what should evolve and yeah, some of those influences.
Yeah. So a little geeky fact for you there. I've actually been to the Brand Museum in London, and they have a display of Coca-Cola bottles and cans from way back when it first started to the present day. And for me, it was fascinating to see that, yeah, the logo has actually evolved, but it's so subtle. And they've obviously kept those core colors of the red and white. But yeah, so there is a bit of an evolution. And so really the logo shouldn't change that much. So that should be the consistent thing. But other things can change around it and actually should in some ways. You'll see there from looking at that first mood board, we still have dark backgrounds on it goes across all of our marketing materials. We keep the dark backgrounds and the neon color pops, but we have actually changed our graphics. We've changed our fonts just to keep them current, because what was fashionable for clubbing, like we get a lot of inspiration from nightclub flyers and things like that. And what was fashionable 10 years ago isn't necessarily fashionable today. The other thing that can change is your tone of voice and words and phrases that you use, because certain words and phrases go out of fashion. And also they can connect you to a certain age demographic too. There's all this talk at the moment of the Gen Zs and the millennials and the Gen X and boomers, and if you're trying to appeal to a younger market, you want to be careful not to use the boomer emojis and
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we want a broad appeal, don't we? But also sometimes we, in branding, we have to recognize that we are targeting a particular type of person, as it were.
yeah,
But with your brand, of course, it can be for absolutely anyone, I mean, that's the whole point of it. But
we're just we're doing a bit of a review at the moment, because we've got a core market for Clubbercise, but we're also aware that that market, a lot of people are kind of growing older with us, but they're potentially going to drop off soon because they may be looking to do less cardio based workouts as they're getting older. And so if you think about it, 10 years, so somebody who was started with us 10 years ago, maybe was, if they were 35, they're 10 years older now, and I don't know how much longer saying that, my mum's like 75 and still does Clubbercise, but you know what I mean? You've got to look at your audience and just think about what can happen. And we're actually doing a review right now of our whole a whole brand identity and tone of voice and all of that to make sure we're not alienating the younger audience, you know, sort of 25 to 35, who may look at some of our language that we use or some of our visuals that we use and be like, oh, that's not very cool, you know? So at the same time, we don't want to alienate our core clubbers and
No.
our older audience. We don't want to alienate them. So yeah, it's a fine balance really. And we even have an emoji gallery in our brand. There's a whole document of things to say, things not to say. And there's like a little emoji gallery of things that we use. So yeah, it can go across everything that you do. The importance of your brand and sticking to that message.
And I'm aware of, you know, brands I know of that have come unstuck because they haven't done those sort of things. And we know it in the fitness industry where somebody has taken a punt at something, you know, and got it dreadfully wrong. And then suddenly it feels like there's a whole refresh and stuff. So it's really lovely to hear that you're having a, you know, rather than reacting, that you're being proactive in that way. And I think that's a really, really important thing for any brand to stay current. Yeah, I think, and then there will be probably an evolution there, won't there? Which is, you know, exciting. So I know I'm going to let everyone into a bit of a secret. I did plan these questions. But one of the questions I had was to ask you what your top tips were. But as well within that, and I never want to expose anybody else or, you know, or somebody that I'm talking to about, you know, things that they think someone's dreadfully done wrong. But maybe if I could ask you what your top tips are, and then also maybe some of the things that people can end up doing within branding that may not serve them. I think that's a nice way of doing it, because I think one of the things when I think of branding is that, you know, people are thinking a lot about the target audience and start, you know, morphing just to sort of, you know, like you're saying, like to, and then maybe then lose sight of what the brand was originally created for, you know, who is actually the person. When we talk about tone of voice, at the end of the day, my tone of voice is a representation of myself as a brand and as FitPro. And if suddenly, you know, the brand said, oh, you've got to do things very differently, I still want it to be authentically me, don't I? So I think sometimes as well, people can maybe see, maybe there's some competition or someone doing something differently and think, oh God, we need to be doing that. So if you could give us some top tips and maybe some thoughts on some of the things that you've seen yourself do or others do, which could be alluring, but may steer you away from what, you know, the best way of doing branding would be.
Yeah. Well, the first one actually is connected to knowing your target customer, what you've just touched on there, because you have to know who your perfect customer is before you can start this process. You can't start it blind without really thinking about who you're talking to and who is most likely to buy your product. And there's quite a lot of templates out there online. It's either creating a customer avatar or creating your ideal customer profile. There's templates so you can actually identify how old are they male or female, what kind of things, what's their lifestyle, you know, have they got children or are they single, or, you know, yeah, whereabouts are they in their life, what challenges have they got and how are you going to solve that? And often people don't necessarily, things that your product can do for them is not necessarily the thing that they're looking for. And you have to think of both those things. So for example, people don't necessarily come to Clubbercise because they think, you know what, I want to improve my mental health. They usually come to get fitter, but the mental health side is a byproduct of that and something we do want to talk about. But you need to know, why are people coming to get fitter, and what other benefits are they going to get, and how can you communicate that with them? So I guess the flip side of that is not knowing who you're targeting. And I see it a lot, and it upsets me because people are just talking to everyone and anyone. And that actually results in talking to no one, which obviously is not what you want to do. And another thing just connected to that, there's I said about the sex of who you're targeting. Now, we know that Clubbercise appeals more to women than it does to men. Group X in general does that. But we don't alienate men in our copy and in our imagery. We include them,
Yes.
but we avoid using terms that would alienate them. So you won't, I hope, see on our social media, you know, hey girls, who's clubbing tonight? Because we are actually wanting to be open to both. But at the same time, we know that we are really talking more to our perfect customer is female. So we just adapt things so that we know it's going to appeal to them and they recognize it, whilst at the same time not alienating guys. But, you know, there are many products and services and brands out there who are only aiming at one sex and can even be a little bit more specific in the language that they use. So that's something that's important to think about too.
Fabulous. And do you think there's some things that are easy to fall into, or yeah, I'm just kind of, what are some of the trappings of getting into branding? Well, there's no trappings, that's perhaps not the right word I'm after, but you know, the things that, you know, you've seen either yourself end up doing or missing out on, or have you got any thoughts on that, what you could share?
Yeah, well, actually, this kind of comes under more tips, really. It's that brands can sometimes become too confusing. You know, they try and do too much. They have so many different elements to their branding, and it can just confuse the customer. You just need to be really clear and really simple. You know, just even things like how your logo looks on social media in that little circle icon, is it clear enough? You know, I did some more screenshots, you know, and there's some great examples out there, but there's not much space in those little circles to get your brand across.
Yes.
And Clubbercise, our circle logo, was designed with that in mind, so it fits
Yes.
beautifully. I didn't pull out any bad examples, just good ones, but you can kind of picture what wouldn't work. So here's Pound the workout. So
Yes.
they use their name, but because it's short, it can, you can still read it basically in that tiny little in the tiny circle. We've got, I
Yes.
know everyone knows what that is as soon as you see it. So oh,
Yes.
and I did Dove as well. So
Yes. Yeah.
it's the simplicity and that the clarity of the message. Something else Dove do really nicely with their branding on their, and a lot of people do this too, but on the bottom, on their highlights, you can even see, is it clear? Can you see? You can even
Yes.
see in the little circles how they're, obviously this is a very white, a very clean brand, and they've just got very simple illustrations in there. So
Yes.
yeah, simplicity, not trying to do too much, otherwise it just becomes noise, which is really, really distracting.
And I think that could be I was going to say a trapping, but you know, when you're first starting out and you're wanting to sort of impress on branding and stuff, you might want to do so much. But like you say, with Dove, for example, Nike, it's really stripped back, isn't it? You know, it's really, it's a bit like the FitPro. It's just fit. That's it. It's not like loads of stuff all over the place. And you know, it is about being recognizable. So anybody, I could pick up your phone now and go, oh, that's Nike. Within, well, I saw it. I think everybody watching
I
this will
didn't even need to say a word.
yeah, I know what that one is. Nike. It's Nike. So it's yeah, it's really, really, you know, one of the tips I would say is about simplicity can speak, like you say, you know, it can speak so richly to people, can't it? You know,
Yeah.
it's a bit like adding so many flavors to a meal. It can be like, oh my goodness, you know, sometimes just something really, really, I don't know, spicy or whatever. You can, I don't know where my analogy is going, so I'm just going to go
Are you
to
hungry?
that must be. So my next question, nice segue into that, is about whether or not you have to have a strategy, or you right. So let's say have a strategy. You know, a bit like when you're saying, right, we're having a review. Is that planned review, or is that a, you know, all it's about time? So over there, or completely winging it, you know, like where, because I think the thing is, if it's so structured that perhaps then you get sort of almost a little, I don't know, restricted, and you can't be creative. So where do you think is best to sort of place yourself?
Well, there's definitely a balance, but
Mhm.
I would say, based on my experience, in that a lot of people in the fitness industry are quite similar to me in that they've got creative minds, and we can very often have all these ideas floating around in our heads, and then it can become overwhelming, and then sometimes maybe the really good ones don't actually get done, and we're focused on other things. And so I think, having a plan is essential, because it's something you can refer back to. You don't need to stick to it word for word, you know, and it should change and evolve with you.
Yeah.
But having some key things to refer to, like your mood board, which effectively becomes your brand guidelines, because once you've created your logo and all the stuff that goes with it, well, you then add those into your mood board, and it becomes all your own stuff. And having a branding plan, a marketing plan to start with, is so, so important. So yeah, I think you can find stuff online as well. You can find brand guidelines templates,
Yeah.
you can find marketing plan templates easily, and just it could start by not having much in it, but it's a start. And I refer back to my marketing plan a lot. I don't always have a current plan, but because we've got sort of ideas that we roll with, and that kind of become ongoing, just things that we do,
Yes.
that, you know,
Yes.
we started with them and we still do them, unless they're not working, in which case we stop, which is also an important tip. You know, if something isn't
Yes.
working, ditch it and try something else. But yeah, to have that plan, it's good for reference. So recently, we're promoting courses in Australia, and I was like, okay, what else have we done in the past? You know, so I just dug out an old plan, and I was like, yeah, okay. So yeah, it's so, so helpful.
It is, isn't it? And the thing is, big brands have brand guidelines to protect their brand, and it's really important. We have brand lines, new word, brand guidelines for all of our services and products, because, you know, the logo will be here, and it won't. Do you know what I mean? It's never. It's really important it's done, and they don't have to be refreshed all the time, because there's just some certain standards which are used, aren't there? But it's, yeah, I think you're right, the fitness professionals out there tend to be incredibly creative, but it's quite hard. I heard you say the word nailing it. It's quite hard to nail it straight away. It's got to be this process that takes time, doesn't it, to create things. So with your experience in branding, and obviously now with your brand, do you find it easy? Is it so automatic for you? Or I mean, do you have people that you know you can turn to, rely on? People will call you out or say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. What, you know, I'm just kind of curious, because I think the assumption is that you must find it easy because you've done that. You've had the experience as a graphic designer and la da 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 da. But I'm just kind of curious of how it works for you at the moment.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, when I'm doing it for other people, I find it easy. But when
Uh,
I'm doing it for myself and for Clubbercise, I find it challenging at times. And I'll often question myself or something I've done. And so then I just fire it out to different people in the team and say, what do you think of this? Which one do you prefer? Because yeah, you can get to that stage where you're sort of overthinking, or you can just think, oh, you know, is this too much like us of 5 years ago or 10 years ago? You know, is this taking us forward, or, you know, does this feel a bit outdated? So yeah, I always ask for other people's advice, not even necessarily people within the company. My boyfriend gets asked questions.
yeah, exactly.
he's
And
got
I
he's
think,
got a good eye.
right, and I think it is about, you know, I have people I know I trust 100% that would give a really honest answer and say, oh, or I don't even have to ask them, because if I, we move things around the team, and when we build upon things, and it might be that someone just spots something really easy. I've actually got a really good eye for detail with I used to do a lot of proofreading, and I'll see it in an instant when it's someone else's work. When it's my own,
Yeah,
it's a
so much.
different thing, isn't it? So sometimes, yeah, you have to refer out to others, and we've got a great team that I can rely on. I know if I get this, information over to this person, that they'll nail it every time. I know, and that's what's so lovely, isn't it? And also that they don't have the ego that would mean that if I said, oh, I'm not, could we just move that there, that they're not going to be upset by that, because they're really part of that
Yeah.
brand process and design, and they're excited by it and stuff. So it's great. So okay, let's talk about inspirations, resources, thoughts, advice. I mean, just basically tell everyone how the hell to do it, please. Just this question.
Well, I think that looking at people and businesses that you admire, both inside the fitness industry and outside the industry, is a really good place to start, because you can get inspired by all sorts of different things. And actually, in some ways, it's better to look outside of the fitness industry, because then there's not that risk of being seen to be copying, because there's a fine line, I get inspired by things all the time, but I make sure that it is not a blatant rip-off. And I have seen people do blatant rip-offs in the past, and it is not cool, and it actually can do more damage to your brand. So yeah, look for that inspiration. I would, stalk their websites, stalk their socials, see how they're communicating their brand, see what marketing campaigns they're running. There was something recently that I saw from a completely different company, but I was like, I really like that campaign, and I think we could do something similar but different at Clubbercise. With, and people, no one seeing it would go, oh, well, I saw something over there, and that was, I think they've just copied it, because it's just taking an idea and being like, how can we mold that for ourselves?
Absolutely. And it is, I love the fact that you said it in that way of like people that you admire or brands that you admire, that that's inspiring, isn't it? It's not like, oh, I need to beat the competition stuff. And I think that's a really, you know, good way to do it. Like, because you can't, the thing is, we can't replicate what anyone else is doing. First of all, because that's ripping off their work and their IP, but also, the reason they're successful in their lane is because they've created it. And but it is great, isn't it, to be able to look to others and go, oh, I really like that. I mean, for me, I always and I kind of fell into marketing and branding and stuff because I ended up having to do it for myself, and then I got into social media, and I sort of fell into it, and realized that I enjoy it, and I can be quite good at it at times, and and it's such a extraordinary place to find myself in, where I didn't study it. This formula I have learned is over years of trying things out, and also our industry changing and what we can do. Like, I started when there was tape cassettes, and then it got to be CDs. So we can only imagine that marketing has changed. The way you marketed your class was to print out, things on a photocopier, and things have certainly changed a lot now. But what I used to find when I was a tutor of people coming into the industry is some people would have quite a fixed view on what they would be prepared to do. For example, some people would be not doing social media. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And actually I had a level of respect for that, like that if that's not their gig, that's not their thing, that I was like, great. But I think that sometimes people with what they identify with might end up restricting their business, because after all, they could outsource it to somebody who does enjoy doing that or is good at it. For me, I like writing, I'm good at writing, but I wouldn't be able to create an illustration, so I would ask somebody else to do that. And I'm sure there's things that you're naturally good at, and probably can do it sort of half in your sleep, if you know what I mean. That I imagine, you know. But I think it's, you know, I think it's a really lovely way of thinking about who you admire and how we can. I think when I do these webcasts, I'm just mindful of thinking that I want them to be inspirational. I want them to sort of give permission to be to who they truly are, and you can manage it without adding that feeling of overwhelm, you know. And actually, the tips you've given, you know, it's not like asking someone to be any other than they truly are, but actually just to be successful in something that they're genuinely passionate about. I mean, would you do branding for a company you didn't believe in, you know, it didn't speak to, right?
No, I couldn't do it. And in all the years when I was working as a consultant doing branding,
Mhm.
I chose my clients carefully for that reason. If I didn't feel like I could, I had to feel like I had a connection with what they were doing and understood it. You know, I wouldn't just do it for the sake of doing it. So yeah, there has to be that passion there. And I just think branding is incredible. And when it's done right, there is no limit to where a company can go. And just something to add, kind of going back to the beginning, really, which is about whether somebody can have a brand like Clubbercise, so create a brand name, or whether the brand can be themselves. It can be either of those things. You know, you can create a brand around your name, and people have done that really well. You can also put yourself as a like become like a household name in the industry yourself, but then have products that sit below that are also branded. So there's lots of ways to use branding, and it just needs to be simple and clear, the communication of it. Yeah, actually, a lot of people, when they're getting overwhelmed, and a lot of brands, even us, you know, can actually strip things back and just make it a little bit, just simplify it a little bit. But you need those guidelines, that mood board there to be able to do that. Otherwise, you're effectively working with maybe a logo and the rest of the sheet of paper is white, and you really don't know what else to put with it. Do you see what I mean?
I do, absolutely. And thanks for coming back to that, because we touched on it, and I know we were going to cover whether it was going to be you're the brand or you become part of a brand or whatever. But that's the thing. And there are, you know, there are some really powerful brands in our industry, aren't they? And also just individuals who become the brand. And it's a really fascinating observation that some people are sort of, they keep themselves behind, you know, like if we were to say about some people who know FitPro will know of our founders, and you know, but it's not ever been about, hey, it's us, you know. And then there are other brands that's more about the person. But you know, for me, I think what's really important about a brand is it doesn't matter, you know, I could remove you, Claire, and put you in Ibiza for a week, but Clubbercise would
I
still
go for a
be.
month.
But you know what I mean? And likewise for FitPro, you know, we could put another person in front of this blue wall that obviously people know that I build behind me, you know, and put a logo. And so long as there was a similar tone of voice, and people would start to recognize it was part of that. But I think that's a really important point about branding. You can be the brand can be the brand. There's both together and stuff. You've been inspiring, educational, and all that. I just want to loop back and just check if there was anything else that you'd like to cover on this branding sort of, I'm going to call it like a masterclass in, you know, there'll be some people who've done branding for a long time listening into this and go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, I didn't do that. But I, you know, and I suspect there'll be some people who just sort of wanting to nail it and stuff, and you know, and hopefully by, you know, providing some of the insights that you've shared, you know, it hasn't felt preachy at all, which is a really good way. Like, you should do this, you should do that. It feels like, you know, you can. And so I thank you for that. So yeah, just looping back, is there anything that we didn't cover that you think?
I'm just having a quick look at my notes. Um, bear with me a sec.
No, that's fine. Should I do a little dance or something? And make. Should-
Please do. Please do. It is
I've
Friday Festival.
never danced like that before in my life. And I suspect people watching this, if this was a Clubbercise audition, that I would have just nailed that. Anyway, over to you, Claire. Is there anything you wanted to cover?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. I wish this was a more inspiration. This is inspirational, but also can be a bit painful for people. You need to have a budget for this, some kind of budget. It's really difficult to do it without a budget unless you're a graphic designer. And it's better to put a bit of money behind this at the start rather than doing it in a little bit of a, can I say, a half-assed way, and then realizing you need to revisit it later. So I'm not saying that you need to spend thousands on this, but be prepared to spend something to get your brand to where you need it to be as quick as possible, and also to take away some of those headaches for you if you're literally thinking, well, I don't even know how to use Canva, you know, and so rather than kind of going on a learning process yourself, just think about spending a bit of money to get some people, some expert help at the start, because once you've got all those assets, it's going to be 100 or 1,000 times easier for you going forward. Save you time, save you spending money on other things.
Yes.
To help, you know, even you could potentially eliminate the need for someone to do your social media if you've got a whole suite of assets, and you kind of then if you've got templates that you can edit. That's another really handy thing. You know, we've got a whole load of templates that we use, and they're often reused with different personal people's testimonials and quotes from people who've gone to classes, or, you know, graphics for different times of year. So I think, yeah, just think about spending a little bit of money up front to really get it right and give you a lot less headaches down the road.
Absolutely, it's great advice. And actually, I know we both talked about Fiverr and that being a really great place for, you know, to start off with logos. And it might be that you get a logo and then that from there you go to a graphic design or whatever. But you know, with Fiverr, it's a classic place, isn't it? You know, you can get a logo, but then you don't get the, you know, it in the right sort of size for your social media, and they've quoted you for a letterhead, which how many people use a letterhead? You know, so and or they might do a logo that's got a white background, and actually you want one with a black background and a transparent and da 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 da. And so yes, I think you're right that sometimes investing a little bit is going to mean less resources of time, but actually mean that you start off in the right way. You know,
Having a strong brand is essential for you to sell more, which obviously then you're not spending so much on sales, not investing so much time or as much money on the sales process if your brand is strong. I mean, in the early days of Clubbercise, we didn't even have a salesperson. We were literally just doing our marketing and promotions. People saw the name, the logo, and a video of a class, and they were sold on that. Obviously, with social media being more difficult to get, you know, organic free reach, we now put more money behind pushing those things out there so people actually see them.
yeah.
But yeah, it can just be simple. It can save you time and make your life easier.
Yeah, I love that. I'm up for making life easier.
That
And
I'm all
yeah,
about, mate.
no,
I'm like, I should write, there's a load of books, The Lazy Girl's Guide. It'll be like The Lazy Girl's Guide to Business Branding.
absolutely, absolutely. But you know, and it's not cutting corners for the sake of it. There are, we know, or shortcuts for the sake of it. Sometimes there's just better routes, isn't
Yeah.
there? You know, and I think that's one of the things that we want to try and find, you know.
I just want to name a couple of
Please.
places for resort. So Canva we've mentioned, which is fantastic. Pinterest, obviously, big fan over here. There's also HubSpot have a really good blog with loads of advice on all things branding and marketing, and it's free. And MailChimp have a similar like suite of resources. So it covers, because branding and marketing is such a huge area with so many facets, and it can be overwhelming. But I often sign up for little just alerts so that I find out when new things are coming out or when new trends are going across social media, because rather than having to be out there researching
Yes,
pretty much
absolutely.
24/7, that news comes to you and you're like, oh, right, okay, I can incorporate that into what I'm doing. Or, oh, no, that's not relevant to me, delete, which is probably my favorite thing to do with emails.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you for not deleting my email to invite you onto the webcast again to
I would never dare.
to model our animal print, or more importantly, just to chat to you. And you know, I love your energy and in what you're doing and what you've created, Claire. Congratulations. You've done a really impressive job. And you know, it seems like you're thriving in it, and that's just such a lovely thing to see in somebody, and you're getting to go to Ibiza with it. So I think
our first session's in Ibiza. I mean, it's just, I'm just, yeah, unbelievably excited about that. It feels like a bit of a new chapter for Clubbercise.
Yeah, it's amazing, amazing. So Claire, thank you so much for your insights and sharing. Where can they find out more about you and your brand?
Well, Clubbercise is across all socials, and then you can find me on Instagram at Claire Clubbercise, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing, amazing. They'll be tracking you down. They'll be watching you in Ibiza, that's for sure. So thank you very much, Claire. Once again, I'm sure we'll have to get on to another one just so we can buy ourselves more outfits. Thank you to everybody for listening in and tuning in. And, you know, I think what I want to say is just be brave in your branding. And just it's that consistency thing. And when I heard Claire saying about just admiring what other people are doing, and if that can help support you, and indeed if we can help support you, you know, in pulling in more webcasts, webinars, resources, whatever, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd be delighted to be able to support you further. So we'll sign out with a cheesy wave. What do you reckon, Claire?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Bye everybody, and thank you, Claire. Bye bye.